let's start with how you are, Winkie.
Well, and alive, which is a lot better than not being alive.
That's good. So how long did it take to get this project completed?
It's a 10-year-long project. It was originally supposed to be done during the Brownsville revival. One of the general editors is Steve Hill. There were 2 million people attended that thing, and there was pastors and leaders, and church leaders arrived Mondays and Tuesday mornings, and up to 1,000 of them came in. Every one of them wanted to know, how can I find out more about these kind of things that have happened in history? And Steve told them what I'd tell you: get a library, because there's no way you can put in just one little thing what God did. And I talked to J. Edwin Orr before he died. To me, he was the greatest church historian of this last century. And I said, do you know any books that go from biblical times through modern days? Just a book. He said, no. I said, well, we need to make one. See, so this is about his body, and they're from all different streams and from different eras. And then plus, we didn't want it so big you'd have to drive it to church, change gears every time you went through the door. So we wanted something that somehow could be compressed to the essence of what was said or done or lived out. And 2001 was supposed to be its release date. We finally came up with, after 6 months of stuff, and the last week nearly killed me, I had a deadline for August, and I was going to bed at 4 in the morning and waking up at 6 every day for 6 days, not to read in a leisurely fashion, trying to find a date of when this happened and how old this person was or where this was. So it was crazy. But at the end of that time, I sent it off, and they couldn't read it. And I said, why not? And they said, it's in a zip drive. I said, yes. They said, we don't have a zip drive. I said, you could have a zip drive. I'll buy you a zip drive. They said, could you do it in floppy disk? I said, I can't do 180 floppy disks. And they, no. So anyway, they had it, somebody printed out. And it was 14 reams of paper. It was huge. That wasn't, but it was just the research around it, you see. But it sat on the shelf for 5 years. And then just a year ago, one of the other generals, 3 general editors, a wonderful researcher called Tamara Winslow, she was teaching in Singapore. 2 ladies came up and said, where did you get that stuff from? She said, it's a project we did. They said, well, how can we get hold of it? She said, you can't, it was never done. And they said, why not? She said, too expensive, too big, too scary, too supernatural, I don't know why. And then the final, they said, well, we'll think about that. And 3 Singapore millionaires underwrote the entire project. So this publishing company went to work on it 24/7 for a whole year. And that's the end of a 10-year project. And as of the day of the finals of the World Soccer Cup, there's a knock on the door, and a courier from the US delivered this. So it's not officially going to be released until September. I hijacked it for New Zealand, and we'll get it in probably around this month.
So what did you hope to achieve with it?
What we wanted to do is to have people see again what God did before. What has God done in the past that he's still able to do today? And I think we mentioned earlier when we were talking, a lot of people think revival is something in an Old Testament thing, and if it's in the New Testament, there's almost no mention of it in the Scriptures at all, and if it is a revival, it's probably demonic. I mean, that's what a lot of thought is, because we think there's only about 30-something verses on the word revive in the whole of the Bible. But the research we have, and we've got a close to Thomson chain reference, 300,000 word study chain, there are 50 synonyms for the word revive. Make alive, renew, all these things. If you plug those in, there's hardly an open page of the Bible that does not in some way show what God does in renewal or evangelism or in missions. So that's what it's about.
Let's talk about a bit about what the Bible's actually like, because it has like chains of ideas in there, and so each page has like little articles that that are there that are sort of linked to that particular passage of Scripture. Just take us through what's actually in there.
First of all, the introduction to each book is not just simply academic. When you read a book of the Bible, the introduction to it ought to touch you the way that God gave it to us in the first place. So we've tried to do passion-based introductions to all of them. And we have a couple of Jewish friends that have, met the Lord massively, and that they're doing things like Leviticus and other places. There's 105 contributors to this, and they're taken from 2,000 years and from different nations. How did they get to a place where they saw those marvelous things happen? Whenever you see a little chain link there, it's part of a massive study chain that'll take you right through the Scriptures and all these different themes. At the back of the book, we've got some large things. For instance, we have one called Transformation. So it starts with individual people's lives and shows biblical stuff of shifting us from screwed up people all the way through to what will affect nations and even the ecology of the world. So then there's a whole section called Healing the Land. And it's to show when this spiritual awakening happens, very often nature itself, there's a little microcosm of healing that goes in there. And that's happening now as it has in the past. So what we're trying to say is this is not just something in the Old Testament. It's something that's in God's heart, and it goes right through from the Old to the New to the last 2,000 years. We have a generation of teenagers, for instance, that their interest is about 3 miles wide, but their knowledge is about 2 inches thick. And we want to give them some of the lost history. They don't have, they're fatherless. They don't have, Twitter is not a great family connection, but they need to have access to what happened before. And they're smart enough to know this thing is real. This is what I've been looking for. When they find that and know that it did happen there and there and there and there, and then it can happen again, they light up like Christmas trees. It is an amazing thing. The real God, the same one who gave us the book, is still doing what he did in those days now. I just want to see God do what he's done before again.
Winkie, it's great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
I think so.